Marcus Johnson walked through the large glass doors of Riverside Mall on a warm Saturday afternoon. He was tired from working all week, but he had an important mission today. His daughter's birthday was coming up in 2 weeks, and she had been asking for a new laptop for months. She needed it for school, and Marcus had finally saved enough money to buy her a good one. The mall was crowded with weekend shoppers. Families walked together. Teenagers laughed in groups, and the smell of fresh cookies from the food court filled the air. Marcus wore his favorite jeans and a comfortable gray hoodie. After a long week of wearing suits and ties at his software engineering job, he enjoyed dressing casually on weekends. He made his way to Tech World, the electronics store on the second floor. The store was busy with customers looking at phones, tablets, and computers. Marcus walked straight to the laptop section. He had done his research online and knew exactly what he wanted. A sales assistant, a young woman named Sarah, came over to help him. "Can I help you find something today?" she asked with a friendly smile. "Yes, I'm looking for the Dell laptop, the one with the blue cover. It's for my daughter," Marcus said. Sarah showed him the laptop and explained all the features. Marcus asked a few questions about the warranty and the return policy. Everything sounded good. After 15 minutes of discussion, he decided to buy it. Sarah wrapped the laptop carefully in bubble wrap and placed it in a large shopping bag with the store's logo on it. At the checkout counter, Marcus paid with his credit card. The total came to $850. He carefully folded the receipt and put it in his jacket pocket. Then he put his wallet back in his jeans pocket. Sarah handed him the shopping bag. "Your daughter is going to love it," Sarah said. "Have a great day." "Thank you so much," Marcus replied. He felt happy thinking about how excited his daughter would be on her birthday. Marcus left Tech World and walked into the main hallway of the mall. He thought about stopping at the food court to grab some lunch, but he decided to look at a few more stores first. Maybe he could find a nice case for the laptop or some other small gift for his daughter. As he walked past a clothing store, he noticed a security officer standing near a pillar. The officer was a white man, probably in his 40s, with short brown hair and a thick mustache. His uniform was dark blue and he had a radio attached to his belt. His name tag read Officer D. Mitchell. Marcus didn't think much of it. Security officers were common in malls. He continued walking, looking at the store windows. But something made him glance back. The security officer was staring directly at him. Not just a casual look, but an intense stare. Marcus felt uncomfortable, but told himself he was being paranoid. He had done nothing wrong. He walked a bit further and stopped to look at a window display of running shoes. Behind him, he heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate footsteps. Marcus turned around and saw Officer Mitchell walking toward him. The officer's face was serious, almost angry. "Excuse me, sir," Officer Mitchell said loudly. "I need to talk to you." Marcus felt his heart beat faster. "Yes, can I help you?" he asked politely. "Where did you get that bag?" Mitchell pointed at the Tech World shopping bag in Marcus's hand. "I just bought a laptop." "From the store upstairs," Marcus replied. He tried to keep his voice calm, but he could feel anxiety building in his chest. "I need to see your receipt," Mitchell demanded. His tone was not friendly or professional. It was aggressive. Marcus felt confused and a bit angry. "Why do you need to see my receipt?" "I just bought this." "Because I'm asking you to show it to me. Do you have a problem with that?" Mitchell stepped closer. His hand moved to rest on his radio. Other shoppers began to notice the interaction. A few people slowed down to watch. Marcus could feel their eyes on him. His face felt hot with embarrassment. "I have my receipt, but I want to know why you're stopping me." "I haven't done anything wrong," Marcus said. He kept his voice respectful but firm. "Someone reported seeing a man matching your description stealing merchandise from a store, so I need to verify that you actually paid for what's in that bag," Mitchell said loudly enough for nearby people to hear. Marcus felt his stomach drop. This couldn't be happening. He had paid for everything. He had his receipt. But he knew what was really happening here. He had heard stories like this before. He had seen videos online, but he never thought it would happen to him. "I paid for this laptop with my credit card less than 20 minutes ago. "I have the receipt in my pocket," Marcus said. He started to reach toward his jacket pocket. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Mitchell shouted, grabbing Marcus's arm roughly. The grip was tight and painful. Marcus froze. More people stopped to stare. He saw a woman pull out her phone and start recording. A teenage boy whispered to his friend. An elderly couple shook their heads and walked away quickly. I was just getting my receipt like you asked, Marcus said. His voice shook slightly. He felt scared now. He had heard too many stories about situations like this going wrong. Don't move until I tell you to move, Mitchell said. His face was red and his voice was harsh. Put the bag down on the ground, slowly. Marcus carefully bent down and placed the shopping bag on the floor. His hands were shaking. He straightened up and kept his hands visible in front of him. Mitchell picked up his radio. This is Mitchell at the West Wing, second floor. I need backup. I have a possible theft situation. The static crackle of the radio response made Marcus's heart pound even harder. This was getting worse. He looked around at the crowd that had formed. Maybe 15 or 20 people now stood in a loose circle watching. Some looked concerned. Others looked curious. A few looked uncomfortable and wouldn't meet his eyes. Officer, please, Marcus said. I can show you my receipt right now. This is a misunderstanding. We'll see about that, Mitchell said coldly. Stay right where you are and keep your hands where I can see them. Don't make any sudden movements. Marcus stood still, feeling humiliated and afraid. He thought about his daughter. He thought about his wife at home. What would he tell them? That he got stopped in the mall for shopping while black? The thought made him angry, but he pushed the anger down. Getting angry would only make things worse. The mall's bright lights suddenly felt too harsh. The cheerful music playing from the speakers seemed wrong. The smell of cookies now made his stomach turn. Everything had changed in just a few minutes. He had gone from being a happy father buying a gift to being treated like a criminal in front of dozens of strangers. And Officer Mitchell stood there, hand on his radio, waiting for backup, looking at Marcus like he had already decided he was guilty. Marcus stood frozen in place, his hands still visible in front of him. The crowd around him had grown larger. He could hear people whispering to each other. Some were recording the entire scene on their phones. The bright flashes of camera phones felt like spotlights pointing at him. He had never felt so exposed and vulnerable in his life. Officer Mitchell circled around him slowly, like a predator watching its prey. The officer's eyes moved from Marcus's face to his pockets, to his shopping bag on the ground and back to his face again. Marcus tried to stay calm, but his breathing was getting faster. He focused on keeping his hands steady. Officer Mitchell, Marcus said quietly, trying one more time. I work as a software engineer. I came here to buy a birthday gift for my daughter. I have my receipt, my credit card, and my ID. Please, let me show you. Mitchell's face twisted into a sneer. Oh, you work as an engineer? Is that what you're telling me? His tone was mocking, disbelieving. That's a nice story. I've heard lots of nice stories from people like you. People like you. Those words hit Marcus like a physical blow. There was no hiding what this was really about now. It wasn't about theft. It wasn't about suspicious behavior. It was about the color of his skin. What do you mean, people like me? Marcus asked. His voice was still controlled, but anger was starting to break through his fear. People who think they can just walk through this mall and take whatever they want. Mitchell replied loudly. People who think the rules don't apply to them. A woman in the crowd gasped. That's not right, she said to the person next to her, but not loud enough for Mitchell to hear clearly. 2 more security officers arrived. One was a young Latino man who looked barely 25. The other was a white woman with blonde hair pulled back in a tight ponytail. They both looked confused about what was happening. What's the situation, Mitchell? The young male officer asked. Caught this guy with stolen merchandise. He's refusing to cooperate, Mitchell said without taking his eyes off Marcus. That's not true, Marcus said, his voice rising despite his efforts to stay calm. I'm not refusing anything. I told him I have my receipt. I've been cooperating the whole time. The blonde female officer looked at the shopping bag on the ground, then at Marcus, then at the crowd of people recording. She seemed uncomfortable. Mitchell, did you check his receipt yet? I was about to when he started getting aggressive, Mitchell lied smoothly. I didn't get aggressive. Marcus protested. All I did was try to reach for my receipt when he told me to show it. Sir, I need you to calm down, the young male officer said, stepping closer to Marcus. I am calm, Marcus said, though his voice was shaking now with a mixture of fear and frustration. I've been calm this entire time. I just want to show you my receipt and go home. Mitchell moved even closer to Marcus, invading his personal space. You need to get on the ground. Right now. Face down, hands behind your back, the crowd murmured. Several people said what? And why? Marcus felt his world spinning. This couldn't be happening. Get on the ground for what? For buying a laptop? I'm not getting on the ground, Marcus said. I haven't done anything wrong. You have no reason to detain me. You're refusing to comply with a lawful order, Mitchell said, his hand moving to his belt where handcuffs hung. That's obstruction. What lawful order? You haven't shown me any proof of theft. You haven't given me any actual reason for stopping me, Marcus argued. His legal rights were being violated and he knew it. But knowing it didn't make him feel any safer. The blonde officer put her hand on Mitchell's shoulder. Derek, maybe we should just look at his receipt first before we escalate this. Mitchell shook her hand off. I'm handling this, Officer Peterson. If you can't support your fellow officer, you can leave. Officer Peterson stepped back, but she didn't leave. She exchanged a glance with the young male officer. Both of them looked uncertain. Sir, please just cooperate, the young officer said to Marcus. It'll be easier for everyone. Cooperate with what? Marcus asked. False accusations? Racial profiling? Being treated like a criminal when I've done nothing wrong? There you go, playing the race card, Mitchell said with disgust. That's what people like you always do when you get caught. The crowd was getting more vocal now. Let him show his receipt. Someone shouted. This is wrong. Another voice called out. But others remained silent, just watching and recording. Marcus looked at the faces in the crowd. He was looking for help, for someone to step in, for someone to tell Officer Mitchell that this was insane. Most people looked away when his eyes met theirs. They were uncomfortable, but they weren't going to help. They didn't want to get involved. Mitchell reached for Marcus's arm again. I'm not going to ask you again. Get on the ground or I will put you on the ground. Marcus pulled his arm back instinctively. It was a reflex, a natural human response to someone grabbing you. But Mitchell used it as an excuse. He's resisting, Mitchell shouted. He grabbed both of Marcus's arms and tried to force him down. Marcus didn't fight back, but he didn't help either. His body was rigid with fear and indignation. The young male officer jumped in to help Mitchell. Together they pushed Marcus toward the ground. The shopping bag with the laptop tipped over and Marcus heard something inside shift. Please don't, Marcus called out. My daughter's laptop. I just paid for that. Several people in the crowd were shouting now. Stop! He didn't do anything! Someone help him! But the security officers didn't stop. Mitchell forced Marcus's arms behind his back. The pressure was painful. Marcus felt his shoulder muscles straining. You're hurting me, Marcus said through gritted teeth. Should have thought about that before you decided to steal, Mitchell replied. His knee was on Marcus's back now, pressing him down against the cold mall floor. Marcus's cheek was against the tile. He could see dozens of shoes surrounding him. Sneakers, high heels, boots, all belonging to people who were watching him be humiliated and brutalized, and most of them were doing nothing to help. Officer Peterson spoke up again. Mitchell, this seems excessive. He's not fighting back. We should just check his receipt. I said I'm handling this. Mitchell snapped at her. The radio on Mitchell's belt crackled. This is Manager Brooks. What's the situation at West Wing? We're getting complaints from customers. Mitchell grabbed his radio with one hand while keeping his other hand on Marcus. We have a theft suspect in custody. Situation is under control. I'm not a suspect. Marcus shouted, his voice muffled against the floor. I have a receipt. Someone please just look at my receipt. But nobody did. Mitchell and the young officer held him there on the ground, while Officer Peterson stood by looking more and more uncomfortable. The crowd grew larger and larger. More phones appeared, recording every second. The cheerful mall music kept playing in the background, completely at odds with what was happening. Marcus closed his eyes. He thought about his wife Sarah at home making lunch. She had no idea this was happening. He thought about his daughter, Maya, who was probably playing in her room right now, excited about her upcoming birthday. Would she get her laptop? Would it be broken now from falling over? Would he even be able to give it to her? Or would he be in jail for a crime he didn't commit? Tears of frustration and humiliation burned in his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of all these people. He wouldn't give Mitchell that satisfaction. Please, Marcus said one more time, his voice barely above a whisper. Please just look at my receipt. It's in my jacket pocket. Right side, please. But Mitchell wasn't listening. He was talking into his radio again, requesting that the police be called. Real police, not just mall security. This was going from bad to worse. Marcus had never felt so helpless in his entire life. He was a grown man, A professional, a father, a husband, and he was being treated like a criminal on the floor of a shopping mall while dozens of people watched and did nothing. Where was justice? Where was help? Where was someone who would stand up and say this was wrong? The voice cut through the noise of the crowd like a knife through butter. It was strong, clear, and full of authority. It was the voice of someone who was used to being obeyed. "Officers, stand down. Right now." Everyone turned to look. Through the crowd of onlookers came a woman in her late 40s. She was tall and walked with perfect posture. Her dark skin glowed under the mall lights. She wore simple jeans and a white button-down shirt, but something about the way she carried herself commanded immediate attention. Her eyes were sharp and focused, taking in the entire scene in seconds. Officer Mitchell looked up from where he was kneeling on Marcus's back. "Ma'am, this is official security business. Please step back." "I said stand down," the woman repeated. Her voice was even stronger this time. "Get off that man, now." Something in her tone made Mitchell hesitate. Officer Peterson and the young male officer both stepped back automatically. The woman's presence was that powerful. "Who are you?" Mitchell demanded, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. "Colonel Patricia Reynolds, United States Army," she said crisply, "and I've been watching this entire situation from the beginning. Get off that man immediately, or I will make sure your supervisor hears about every single thing you've done here today." Mitchell's face went pale. He slowly removed his knee from Marcus's back and stood up. Marcus remained on the ground for a moment, catching his breath. His arms ached from being twisted behind him. His cheek was sore from being pressed against the hard floor. Colonel Reynolds stepped closer and extended her hand to Marcus. "Sir, you can get up now, slowly. Are you injured?" Marcus took her hand and pulled himself up with her help. His legs felt shaky. "I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you so much." His voice cracked with emotion. "What's your name?" the colonel asked him gently. "Marcus Johnson, ma'am." "Mr. Johnson, can you tell me what happened here?" Before Marcus could answer, Officer Mitchell interrupted. "This man was suspected of theft. We were conducting a lawful detention." Colonel Reynolds turned to face Mitchell. Her expression was ice cold. "I wasn't asking you, Officer Mitchell. I was asking Mr. Johnson." She looked at Mitchell's name tag deliberately, making sure he knew she had memorized his name. "And there was nothing lawful about what I just witnessed." Mitchell's face turned red. "You don't have authority here. This is mall property, and I'm mall security. I have the authority of a United States citizen who just witnessed what appears to be racial profiling and excessive force," the colonel replied. "I also have the authority of someone who knows the law, and most importantly, I have the authority of about 20 witnesses who recorded this entire incident on their phones." She gestured to the crowd. People held up their phones, still recording. Some nodded in agreement with her words. Mitchell tried to regain control of the situation. "Look, someone reported seeing him steal merchandise. I was following protocol." "What was the report? Who made it? When did you receive it?" Colonel Reynolds asked sharply. "Give me specifics, Officer Mitchell," Mitchell stammered. It came over the radio. A call about suspicious activity." "Show me the radio log. Show me the timestamp. Show me any documentation of this alleged report," the colonel demanded. Mitchell looked at the other two officers for support. Officer Peterson looked away. The young male officer stared at the ground. Neither of them said anything. "You can't show me because there was no report, was there?" Colonel Reynolds continued. "You saw a black man carrying a shopping bag and you made an assumption based on his race. That's called racial profiling, Officer Mitchell, and it's illegal." People in the crowd began speaking up. "She's right," someone called out. "He didn't do anything wrong," another voice added. The tide was turning. Colonel Reynolds turned back to Marcus. "Mr. Johnson, you mentioned you have a receipt. May I see it?" Marcus's hands were still shaking as he reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out the receipt and handed it to the colonel. She unfolded it and read it carefully. "This receipt shows a purchase made at Tech World approximately 23 minutes ago. The purchase was for a Dell laptop, paid for with a credit card ending in 4739. The total was $850 plus tax." She looked up at Officer Mitchell. "Does Mr. Johnson match the description of someone who just successfully completed a legitimate purchase?" Mitchell said nothing. His jaw was clenched tight. Colonel Reynolds walked over to the shopping bag that had fallen on the floor. She picked it up carefully and looked inside. "This bag contains a laptop box wrapped in bubble wrap exactly as described on the receipt. Officer Mitchell, do you have any evidence whatsoever that this man committed a crime? He was acting suspicious, Mitchell muttered. Acting suspicious how? The colonel pressed. Walking while black? Shopping while black? Existing while black? Her words hung in the air. The crowd was completely silent now, listening to every word. A teenage boy standing near the front of the crowd spoke up. I saw the whole thing. That dude didn't do anything. He was just walking. The security guy started following him for no reason. Thank you, Colonel Reynolds said to the boy. Would you be willing to give a statement as a witness? The boy nodded. Yeah, definitely. This is messed up. Several other people in the crowd raised their hands. I'll give a statement too, a middle-aged woman said. I saw everything, an older man added. Officer Peterson finally spoke up. Colonel Reynolds is right, Mitchell. We should have checked his receipt first. This got out of hand. Mitchell glared at her. Whose side are you on, Peterson? The side of doing our jobs correctly, she replied quietly but firmly. Colonel Reynolds pulled out her phone. I'm going to need to speak with your supervisor, Officer Mitchell, and with the mall management. What happened here today is serious. Mr. Johnson's civil rights were violated. He was unlawfully detained, subjected to excessive force, and publicly humiliated. Now wait just a minute, Mitchell started. No, you wait, the colonel interrupted. I spent 28 years in the United States Army defending the Constitution and the rights it guarantees to all citizens. I didn't fight for this country just to come home and watch those rights be trampled on in a shopping mall. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Johnson, you have every right to file a formal complaint. You also have grounds for a lawsuit. I hope you'll consider both options. What happened to you today was wrong, and the people responsible need to be held accountable. Marcus nodded, still trying to process everything that had just happened. 5 minutes ago, he was on the ground being treated like a criminal. Now this stranger, this colonel, was standing up for him in a way no one else had. Thank you, Marcus said again. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't stepped in. Colonel Reynolds' expression softened when she looked at him. I know exactly what would have happened. And that's why I couldn't stay silent. Nobody should have to go through what you just experienced. A young boy pushed through the crowd. He was about 16, tall and thin, with the same dark skin as the colonel. Mom, is everything okay? He asked with concern in his voice. Yes, Kevin, everything's going to be okay now, she assured him. Then she turned to the crowd. My son and I were shopping together. We were in the store across the hall when this started. My son saw what was happening and came to get me. She looked at her son with pride and sadness mixed together. Kevin has already learned what it means to be a young black man in America. He's already learned to be afraid of situations like this, and that breaks my heart. But today he also learned that we don't have to accept injustice. We can stand up. We can speak out. We can demand better. The crowd began to clap. It started with just a few people, then spread until dozens of people were applauding. Some were cheering. Marcus felt tears finally escape his eyes, but they were different tears now. Not tears of humiliation, but tears of relief and gratitude. Officer Mitchell stood there, his face burning with anger and embarrassment. He knew he had lost control of the situation completely. The young male officer and Officer Peterson stood apart from him now, physically and symbolically distancing themselves from his actions. Colonel Reynolds pulled out a business card from her wallet and handed it to Marcus. This has my contact information. Please call me if you need anything. A witness statement, a reference, help finding a lawyer. Whatever you need. Marcus took the card with trembling hands. I will. Thank you, Colonel Reynolds. You saved me today. We all have a responsibility to save each other, she replied simply. That's what being part of a community means. A man in a dark suit pushed through the crowd. He was breathing hard like he had been running. His name tag identified him as James Brooks, Mall Security Director. He looked at the scene in front of him with Officer Mitchell, the other two security officers, Marcus, Colonel Reynolds, and the large crowd of onlookers. His face showed that he knew this was bad. What's going on here? Brooks demanded, though his tone was more worried than authoritative. Officer Mitchell spoke first. Sir, we had a report of possible theft and we're investigating. This woman has been interfering with our security protocols. That's a lie, Colonel Reynolds said calmly but firmly. I'm Colonel Patricia Reynolds, United States Army. I witnessed your officer, Mr. Mitchell, racially profile this gentleman, Mr. Marcus Johnson. There was no report of theft. Your officer made that up to justify stopping a black man who was simply walking through your mall with a legitimate purchase. Brooks looked from Mitchell to Marcus to the colonel. He saw the shopping bag on the ground, Marcus's wrinkled clothes from being forced to the ground, and the dozens of phones still recording. He was a man who recognized a public relations nightmare when he saw one. "Can someone please explain exactly what happened?" Brooks asked. "I can," said the teenage boy who had spoken up earlier. "I was standing right there when it started. Your security guy followed that man for like 2 minutes, just staring at him. Then he stopped him and accused him of stealing. The man said he had a receipt, but your guy wouldn't even look at it. He made him put his bag down and then forced him to the ground. It was crazy. I recorded the whole thing," a woman in her 30s said, holding up her phone. "From the moment Officer Mitchell grabbed Mr. Johnson's arm until the colonel told him to get off of him. It's all right here. So did I," another person added. "And I already uploaded it to social media." Brooks's face went even paler. Social media? That was exactly what he was afraid of. This could go viral in minutes. "The mall's reputation would be destroyed, Mr. Johnson," Brooks said, turning to Marcus. "I sincerely apologize for what happened to you. This should never have occurred. May I see your receipt, please?" Marcus handed it to him silently. Brooks read it quickly and closed his eyes in frustration. A legitimate purchase made minutes before the confrontation with a credit card. There was absolutely no reason for Mitchell to have stopped this man. "Officer Mitchell," Brooks said slowly, "did you verify that Mr. Johnson had a receipt before detaining him?" "He was acting suspicious," Mitchell began. "That's not what I asked. Did you verify his receipt? Yes or no?" Mitchell's jaw tightened. "No, sir. He became aggressive when I asked to see it." "That's a lie," Marcus said, his voice rising. "I tried to show him my receipt multiple times. He grabbed me when I reached for my pocket. He told me to get on the ground. He accused me of being a thief in front of all these people. I cooperated with everything he said, and he still treated me like a criminal." Colonel Reynolds stepped forward. "Mr. Brooks, I have a very clear view of the legal issues here. Your officer conducted an unlawful detention based on racial profiling. He used excessive force on a man who was not resisting. He made false statements about receiving a theft report, and he violated Mr. Johnson's civil rights. This isn't just a customer service issue. This is a legal matter." Brooks nodded slowly. "I understand, Colonel. Mr. Johnson, would you be willing to come to my office? You too, Colonel Reynolds, if you're willing to provide a witness statement. I need to document this incident properly." "I want him fired," Marcus said, pointing at Mitchell. "What he did to me was wrong. He needs to face consequences." "I can't make personnel decisions right now," Brooks said carefully, "but I can promise you this will be investigated thoroughly. Officer Mitchell, you're suspended pending investigation. Give me your radio and your badge." Mitchell's face went bright red. "You're suspending me? For doing my job?" "Your job is to keep customers safe, not to harass them," Brooks replied. "Badge and radio. Now." Reluctantly, Mitchell removed his badge and unclipped his radio from his belt. He handed them to Brooks with trembling hands. The humiliation was written all over his face, but unlike Marcus's humiliation, Mitchell's was deserved. "Officer Peterson and Officer Ramirez, please escort Officer Mitchell off the premises," Brooks instructed. Officer Peterson nodded. She and the young male officer, whose name was apparently Ramirez, led Mitchell away. Mitchell glared back at Marcus as he left, a look of pure hatred in his eyes. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Even in defeat, Mitchell was dangerous. "Let's go to my office," Brooks said. "We can talk more privately there." Colonel Reynolds put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Are you comfortable going to his office? You have no obligation to. You can leave right now and contact a lawyer if you prefer." Marcus thought about it. Part of him wanted to run away from this mall and never come back. But another part of him wanted answers, wanted justice, wanted to make sure this never happened to anyone else. "I'll go," Marcus said. "But I want you there with me, Colonel." "I'm not leaving your side," she assured him. Brooks addressed the crowd. "Thank you all for your patience. The situation is under control now. We apologize for the disturbance." The crowd slowly began to disperse, though many people were still talking about what they had witnessed. Some came up to Marcus to offer their support or give him their contact information in case he needed witnesses. One older woman hugged him and said, "God bless you, young man. I'm so sorry that happened to you." Colonel Reynolds' son Kevin stayed close to his mother. Marcus noticed the boy watching him with a mixture of sympathy and understanding. This boy probably knew exactly how Marcus felt. He had probably been taught from a young age to be careful around police, to keep his hands visible, to avoid sudden movements. It was a painful education that too many black children received. They walked to Brooks's office on the 3rd floor. It was a plain room with a desk, several chairs, and filing cabinets. Brooks gestured for them to sit down. He took out a notepad and a pen. "Mr. Johnson, I need you to tell me everything that happened from the beginning." "Take your time." Marcus took a deep breath and began his story. He explained how he came to the mall to buy his daughter a birthday gift. He described paying for the laptop, getting his receipt, and leaving the store. He talked about noticing Mitchell staring at him, then following him, then confronting him. He detailed every question, every accusation, every moment of the encounter. His voice shook when he described being forced to the ground while his daughter's laptop fell over. Colonel Reynolds added her observations as a witness. She explained that she had been shopping with her son when they noticed the commotion. She had watched Mitchell's behavior from the beginning and saw no valid reason for the stop. Mr. Mitchell claimed he received a report of theft. Brooks said, "But I've checked the radio logs and there was no such report during that time period." "Because he made it up," Colonel Reynolds said flatly. He saw a black man with a shopping bag and assumed he was a thief. "It's textbook racial profiling." Brooks rubbed his face with his hands. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Johnson. What happened to you is inexcusable. Officer Mitchell will face disciplinary action up to and including termination. I'll also be reviewing our security protocols and training programs." "That's not enough," Marcus said. "What about the other people he's done this to? You think I'm the first person he's profiled?" Brooks was quiet for a moment. "I'll be reviewing his entire employment history. If there are other incidents, they'll be investigated." "And what about me?" Marcus asked. "What about the fact that I was humiliated in front of hundreds of people? What about the fact that I thought I might get arrested or worse for the crime of shopping? What about my daughter's birthday gift that might be broken now because your officer knocked it over? If the laptop is damaged, the mall will replace it at no cost to you," Brooks said immediately. "And will compensate you for your distress and inconvenience." "I don't want your money," Marcus said, though his voice was tired now. "I want this to never happen again." "To me or to anyone else," Colonel Reynolds spoke up. "Mr. Brooks, what specific changes will you make to prevent this? Because training alone isn't enough. You need policy changes. You need accountability measures. You need to create a system where officers like Mitchell can't abuse their power." Brooks wrote notes quickly. "We'll implement bias training for all security staff. We'll require officers to document the specific reason for every customer stop. We'll create a complaint hotline that goes directly to corporate, not just to mall management, and we'll form a community oversight committee." "Those are good starts," the colonel acknowledged, "but they need to be implemented immediately, not eventually. And Mr. Johnson should be kept informed of all policy changes and the outcome of the investigation into Officer Mitchell." "Agreed," Brooks said. He looked at Marcus with genuine regret in his eyes. "Mr. Johnson, I know an apology isn't enough, but I am truly sorry. What happened to you goes against everything this mall is supposed to stand for." Marcus nodded but said nothing. Words were cheap. Actions were what mattered. 2 hours later, Marcus finally left the mall. Colonel Reynolds walked with him to the parking lot, her son Kevin following quietly behind them. Marcus carried his shopping bag carefully, though he worried about what condition the laptop was in after being knocked over. That laptop was supposed to be a symbol of his love for his daughter, but now it was connected to one of the worst experiences of his life. "Are you going to be okay to drive?" Colonel Reynolds asked with concern. "You've been through a lot today." "I think so," Marcus said, though his hands were still shaking slightly. "I just want to get home to my wife. I need to see my family." The colonel nodded with understanding. "Before you go, I want to give you some information." She pulled out her phone and started typing. "I'm sending you contact information for several civil rights attorneys in the area. They specialize in cases like yours. I strongly encourage you to call at least one of them on Monday." Marcus's phone buzzed with her message. "Thank you. I'll do that. I'm also sending you the contact information for a therapist who specializes in trauma. What happened to you today was traumatic, Marcus. It's okay to need help processing it." Marcus felt his eyes sting with tears again. This woman, this stranger, was showing him more care and concern than he had received from anyone else today except his own family. "Why are you doing all this for me? You don't even know me." Colonel Reynolds smiled sadly. I have a 17-year-old son. Every time he leaves the house, I worry about him. I worry that he'll be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I worry that someone will see him as a threat instead of as the sweet, brilliant boy he is. When I saw what was happening to you in that mall, I saw what could happen to Kevin. I saw what has happened to too many black men in this country. She paused, her voice growing stronger. But also, I don't need to know you personally to know that what happened was wrong. I spent my career serving this country and defending our Constitution. That Constitution guarantees equal treatment under the law. When I see those rights being violated, I have to speak up. It's my duty as a soldier and as a citizen. Kevin spoke up for the first time. Mom teaches me that silence in the face of injustice makes you part of the problem. That's right, the colonel said, putting her arm around her son's shoulders. If good people stay silent, then bad people win. Marcus looked at Kevin. The boy was tall and lanky, with kind eyes that seemed older than his years. How old are you, Kevin? 17, sir. I'll be 18 in 4 months. You remind me of my nephew, Marcus said. He's about your age. Smart kid, wants to be a doctor. But I worry about him too. I worry about all the young black men trying to just live their lives in peace. That's why what happened today matters, Colonel Reynolds said. Every time we hold people accountable for racial profiling and discrimination, we make the world a little safer for the next generation. We can't let incidents like this just disappear. They need to be documented, investigated, and addressed. Marcus nodded. The mall director said he would investigate Mitchell. But do you think he actually will? Or is he just trying to keep me from suing? Both, probably, the colonel said honestly. But that doesn't mean the investigation won't be real, especially with all those witnesses and videos. This got very public very fast. The mall can't just sweep it under the rug now. What should I do next? Marcus asked. He felt overwhelmed by everything that needed to happen. Filing complaints, calling lawyers, giving statements. It felt like the violation was continuing even though the actual incident was over. First, go home to your family. Tell your wife what happened. Let her support you. Then tomorrow or Monday you should do several things. The colonel counted on her fingers. 1. File a formal complaint with the mall's corporate office, not just the local management. 2. File a complaint with the police department if you want to, since Mitchell works for a company contracted by the mall. 3. Contact one of those attorneys I sent you. And 4. Consider whether you want to share your story with the media. The media? Marcus hadn't thought about that. The idea made him nervous. Yes. Local news organizations would be very interested in this story, especially with the video evidence. Media attention can put pressure on the mall to follow through on their promises. It also raises awareness about racial profiling. But it's your choice. Some people find it empowering to share their story. Others find it too invasive. There's no wrong answer. Marcus thought about it. Part of him wanted to hide from the world and pretend this never happened. But another part of him was angry. Angry enough to want everyone to know what Officer Derek Mitchell had done to him. I'll think about it, Marcus said. They reached Marcus's car. He unlocked it and carefully placed the shopping bag on the passenger seat. He still hadn't opened the laptop box to check if it was damaged. He was afraid of what he might find. Colonel Reynolds handed him her business card. I already sent you my contact information, but take this too. Call me anytime if you need anything. I mean that. I'll be happy to provide a witness statement to your lawyer, to the mall, to the media, to whoever needs to hear it. Thank you, Colonel, Marcus said, shaking her hand firmly. I mean it. Thank you for stepping in. Thank you for not walking away like everyone else did. Not everyone walked away, she reminded him. There were people in that crowd who spoke up, who offered to be witnesses, who recorded what happened. Don't lose faith in humanity completely. Marcus smiled weakly. I'll try not to. He drove home in a daze. The streets looked the same as when he had driven to the mall that morning, but he felt like a different person. Something had broken inside him today, a sense of safety maybe, or innocence. The belief that if you followed the rules and did everything right, you would be okay. He knew now that wasn't true. You could do everything right and still be seen as a criminal because of the color of your skin. When he pulled into his driveway, his wife Sarah was working in the front garden. She looked up when she heard the car and waved. Then she saw his face and her smile disappeared. She dropped her gardening gloves and ran to the car. Marcus, what happened? Are you okay? She asked urgently, pulling open his car door. Marcus got out and hugged her tightly. For a moment he couldn't speak. He just held his wife and let himself feel safe again. "Baby, you're scaring me." "What happened?" Sarah asked, pulling back to look at his face. "I got stopped at the mall by security. They accused me of stealing." The words came out in a rush. Sarah's face went through several emotions. Confusion, then understanding, then anger. "They what?" "I bought Maya's laptop. I had the receipt. I did everything right. But the security officer saw me and decided I must be a thief. He made me get on the ground in front of everyone, Sarah. He treated me like I was nothing." Sarah hugged him again, tighter this time. "Oh my God, Marcus, are you hurt? Did they arrest you?" "No, someone stepped in. An army colonel." She stood up for me and made them back off. "But Sarah, if she hadn't been there..." He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what could have happened. Their daughter Maya appeared at the front door. She was 9 years old with pigtails and a bright yellow shirt. "Daddy, you're home." "Did you get it? Did you get my laptop?" Marcus and Sarah both turned to look at their daughter. So innocent, so happy, so unaware of how cruel the world could be. "Give us a minute, sweetheart," Sarah called to her. "Daddy needs to talk to Mommy first." "But I want to see the laptop," Maya whined. "Maya, go inside." "Now," Sarah said in her serious voice, the voice that meant no arguments. Maya's face fell, but she went back inside and closed the door. "We need to tell her," Marcus said quietly. "She's going to hear about it anyway. There were videos. It might end up on the news. She should hear it from us first." Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She's 9 years old. She shouldn't have to know about things like this yet. "I wish that were true," Marcus said sadly. "But this is the world we live in." She needs to understand. They went inside together. Marcus sat down on the couch and called Maya over. She bounced into the living room, still excited about her gift. "Is everything okay?" Maya asked, noticing her parents' serious faces. "Come sit with me, baby girl," Marcus said. Maya climbed onto the couch next to him. Sarah sat on his other side. "I did get your laptop," Marcus began. "It's in the car. But something happened at the mall today and I need to tell you about it." For the next 20 minutes, Marcus explained what had happened in simple terms that a 9-year-old could understand. He told her about Officer Mitchell stopping him, about being accused of stealing even though he had done nothing wrong, about how scared he felt. He also told her about Colonel Reynolds, about how she stood up for what was right, about how strangers in the crowd had supported him. Maya listened with wide eyes. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Did he think you were bad because you're black?" The question hit Marcus like a punch to the chest. But he answered honestly, "Yes, sweetheart. I think that's exactly why. But that's not fair," Maya said, her voice small. He looked at his mother, then at Marcus. "But what Mr. Johnson's story taught me is that we can't just protect ourselves. We have to protect each other. We have to be willing to speak up when we see something wrong happening to someone else. Because next time it might be me on that mall floor, and I hope someone like my mom will step in for me too." The audience broke into applause. Several people were wiping tears from their eyes. After the town hall ended, many people came up to thank Marcus and the colonel for sharing their story. A middle-aged white woman approached them with tears streaming down her face. "I'm ashamed to say I've walked past situations like what happened to you, Mr. Johnson," she said. "I've seen black men being stopped by police or security and I just kept walking. I told myself it wasn't my business, but after hearing your story I realized that silence makes me part of the problem. The next time I see something like that, I promise I will speak up." "That's all we can ask," Colonel Reynolds said kindly. "Learn, grow, and do better. That's how we create change." Marcus met several other people who had experienced similar incidents. They exchanged contact information and talked about forming a support group. There was strength in numbers, they realized, in shared experiences, in knowing you weren't alone. As Marcus drove home that night, he thought about everything that had happened over the past month. The trauma of being profiled and detained, the fear and humiliation, but also the unexpected friendship with Colonel Reynolds, the support from his community, the policy changes at the mall, the conversations starting to happen about racial bias and discrimination. His daughter's laptop had turned out to be undamaged, thankfully. Maya had been thrilled with her birthday gift. But more than that, she had learned an important lesson about standing up for what's right. She had watched her father turn a traumatic experience into an opportunity for education and change. When Marcus got home, Sarah was waiting up for him. "How did it go?" "It was good," Marcus said, sitting down beside her on the couch. "Really good, actually. There were so many people there who wanted to listen and learn, and meeting other people who've gone through similar things, that helped. Made me feel less alone." Sarah squeezed his hand. "I'm proud of you. I know none of this has been easy." "No, it hasn't," Marcus agreed. "But Colonel Reynolds was right. If we stay silent, nothing changes. And I don't want Maya to grow up in a world where what happened to me is just accepted as normal." A few weeks later, Marcus received another call from the colonel. "I have an idea I want to run by you," she said. "What if we created a training program? Something we could take to malls, stores, and other businesses, teaching staff about racial bias, proper security protocols, and how to treat all customers with respect and dignity." Marcus thought about it. "That's a big project." "It is," the colonel agreed. "But I think we could make a real difference. We could use your story as a case study, show people exactly what not to do and why it matters." "I'm in," Marcus said without hesitation. "Let's do it." Over the next 6 months, Marcus and Colonel Reynolds worked together to develop the training program. They partnered with Justice Now, brought in Dr. Williams and Attorney Chen as consultants, and even convinced some reformed security officers to participate. They called it the Dignity and Respect Initiative. Their first training session was at Riverside Mall itself, with all security staff required to attend. Standing in front of the same people who had stood by while he was humiliated felt strange at first. But Marcus pushed through his discomfort. This was about making sure what happened to him never happened to anyone else. "No, baby, it's not fair," Marcus agreed, pulling his daughter close. "But that's why we have to speak up when we see unfair things happening. That's why the colonel helped me. That's why good people need to stand together." Maya hugged her father tightly. "I'm glad that lady helped you, Daddy. I'm glad you're okay." "Me too, sweetheart." "Me too." Later that evening, after Maya had gone to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with Sarah. His laptop was open in front of him, and he was reading articles about racial profiling and civil rights law. Sarah sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "I made an appointment with one of the lawyers Colonel Reynolds recommended," Marcus said. "It's for Monday afternoon." "Good," Sarah said firmly. "What that officer did was wrong. He needs to face consequences." "I'm also thinking about going to the media," the colonel suggested it. She said public attention could help make sure the mall actually follows through on their promises. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Are you ready for that? It could get really public. There might be people who defend the officer or say you're making too big a deal out of it." Marcus nodded. "I know, but I keep thinking about Kevin, the colonel's son. He's only 17. And I keep thinking about Maya, growing up in a world where this kind of thing is normal. If sharing my story can help change things even a little bit, isn't that worth it?" "You're a brave man, Marcus Johnson," Sarah said, kissing his cheek. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus did exactly what he said he would do. He filed formal complaints with the mall's corporate office and with the security company that employed Officer Mitchell. He met with attorney Jennifer Chen, one of the lawyers Colonel Reynolds had recommended. Attorney Chen was a fierce advocate for civil rights and immediately took on Marcus's case. Marcus also agreed to do an interview with the local news station. The story aired on a Wednesday evening, complete with the video footage that witnesses had recorded. The reporter, a young black woman named Lisa Thompson, handled the story with sensitivity and professionalism. She showed the video of Officer Mitchell forcing Marcus to the ground. She interviewed Colonel Reynolds, who gave a powerful statement about racial profiling and the importance of speaking up against injustice. The story went viral almost immediately. Within hours, it was being shared across social media platforms. People from all over the country watched the video and read about what happened. Most of the comments were supportive of Marcus. People shared their own stories of being profiled and discriminated against. The hashtag Standing Up Matters began trending, inspired by Colonel Reynolds' words about not staying silent. Of course, not everyone was supportive. Some people accused Marcus of playing the victim. Others defended Officer Mitchell, saying he was just doing his job. A few people sent Marcus hateful messages online, but the overwhelming majority of responses were positive, and that gave Marcus strength. 3 days after the news story aired, the mall held a press conference. James Brooks, the security director, stood at a podium with the mall's general manager, Helen Rodriguez. They announced that Officer Derek Mitchell had been terminated from his position. They also revealed that an investigation had uncovered 2 previous incidents where Mitchell had been accused of racial profiling, though those complaints had never been properly investigated. "We failed, Mr. Johnson," General Manager Rodriguez said into the cameras. "We failed to properly train and supervise our security staff. We failed to investigate previous complaints, and we failed to create an environment where all customers feel safe and welcome. That changes today." She announced a series of new policies. All security officers would undergo mandatory bias training every 6 months. Every customer stop would need to be documented with a specific reason and timestamp. A civilian oversight committee would be formed to review security complaints. And the mall would partner with local civil rights organizations to ensure these policies were actually implemented and enforced. Marcus watched the press conference from home with Sarah beside him. When it was over, he felt a mix of emotions: relief that Mitchell was gone, satisfaction that new policies were being put in place, but also sadness that it took his humiliation and a viral video for any of this to happen. His phone rang. It was Colonel Reynolds. "Did you see the press conference?" she asked. "Yes, I just watched it," Marcus replied. "How are you feeling?" "Honestly, I don't know. I'm glad Mitchell is gone. I'm glad they're making changes. But I keep thinking about all the other people this probably happened to, who didn't have someone like you step in, who didn't have video evidence, who didn't have their story go viral." "I know," the colonel said gently. "This is one victory, but the fight isn't over. Systemic change takes time, but you started something important, Marcus. You stood up. You told your story. You held people accountable. That matters more than you might realize." 2 weeks after that, Marcus received a surprise email. It was from a community organization called Justice Now, a local group that worked on police reform and civil rights issues. They wanted to know if Marcus and Colonel Reynolds would be willing to speak at a town hall meeting about racial profiling and community policing. Marcus called the colonel to ask if she was interested. "Absolutely," she said without hesitation. "This is exactly the kind of work that needs to be done. Are you comfortable with public speaking?" "Not really," Marcus admitted. "But I think I need to do this. If my story can help other people understand what racial profiling looks like and why it's wrong, then I should tell it." The town hall was held on a Thursday evening at the local community center. Over 200 people showed up. There were families, students, activists, local politicians, and even some police officers. The room was packed. Marcus sat on a panel with Colonel Reynolds, Attorney Jennifer Chen, and Dr. Robert Williams, a sociology professor who studied racial bias. The moderator was Lisa Thompson, the reporter who had first covered Marcus's story. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus took a deep breath and told his story once again. But this time it was easier. He had told it so many times now that he could get through it without his voice shaking. He talked about the fear he felt on the ground. He talked about the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in front of strangers. He talked about having to explain to his 9-year-old daughter why someone had treated her father that way. "I did everything right that day," Marcus said to the audience. "I was a paying customer. I had my receipt. I was polite and cooperative. But none of that mattered to Officer Mitchell because he had already decided I was guilty the moment he saw me. He didn't see me as a software engineer, a father, a husband, or a human being. He just saw my skin color and made assumptions." The room was completely silent as people listened. Then Colonel Reynolds spoke. "What happened to Marcus is not an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern of racial profiling that happens every day in this country, in malls, on streets, in stores, and schools. And it happens because we allow it to happen. We stay silent when we see it. We make excuses for it. We pretend it's not about race when we know it is." She paused and looked around the room. "But we can do better. Each one of us has the power to stand up when we see injustice. We have the power to speak out. We have the power to demand change. That's what I did when I saw what was happening to Marcus. And that's what all of you can do too." During the question and answer session, a young black man raised his hand. He looked to be in his early 20s. "I've been stopped by police 7 times in the last 2 years. Every time they say I match the description of someone they're looking for. Every time I haven't done anything wrong. What am I supposed to do? How do I protect myself?" Marcus and the colonel exchanged a look. They both knew this question too well. Dr. Williams answered first, explaining the legal rights people have during police encounters. Attorney Chen added information about filing complaints and documenting incidents, but it was Kevin Reynolds, the colonel's son, who gave the most powerful response. Kevin had been sitting in the audience, but he stood up to speak. I'm 17 years old. My mom has already given me the talk about how to act around police. Keep my hands visible. Don't make sudden movements. Always be respectful, even if they're not respectful to you. It's exhausting having to think about all of that every time I leave the house, but I do it because I want to come home safe. No, baby, it's not fair, Marcus agreed, pulling his daughter close. But that's why we have to speak up when we see unfair things happening. That's why the colonel helped me. That's why good people need to stand together. Maya hugged her father tightly. I'm glad that lady helped you, Daddy. I'm glad you're okay. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Later that evening, after Maya had gone to bed, Marcus sat at the kitchen table with Sarah. His laptop was open in front of him, and he was reading articles about racial profiling and civil rights law. Sarah sat beside him, her hand on his shoulder. I made an appointment with one of the lawyers Colonel Reynolds recommended, Marcus said. It's for Monday afternoon. Good, Sarah said firmly. What that officer did was wrong. He needs to face consequences. I'm also thinking about going to the media. The colonel suggested it. She said public attention could help make sure the mall actually follows through on their promises. Sarah was quiet for a moment. Are you ready for that? It could get really public. There might be people who defend the officer or say you're making too big a deal out of it. Marcus nodded. I know, but I keep thinking about Kevin, the colonel's son. He's only 17, and I keep thinking about Maya, growing up in a world where this kind of thing is normal. If sharing my story can help change things even a little bit, isn't that worth it? You're a brave man, Marcus Johnson, Sarah said, kissing his cheek. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus did exactly what he said he would do. He filed formal complaints with the mall's corporate office and with the security company that employed Officer Mitchell. He met with attorney Jennifer Chen, one of the lawyers Colonel Reynolds had recommended. Attorney Chen was a fierce advocate for civil rights and immediately took on Marcus's case. Marcus also agreed to do an interview with the local news station. The story aired on a Wednesday evening, complete with the video footage that witnesses had recorded. The reporter, a young black woman named Lisa Thompson, handled the story with sensitivity and professionalism. She showed the video of Officer Mitchell forcing Marcus to the ground. She interviewed Colonel Reynolds, who gave a powerful statement about racial profiling and the importance of speaking up against injustice. The story went viral almost immediately. Within hours, it was being shared across social media platforms. People from all over the country watched the video and read about what happened. Most of the comments were supportive of Marcus. People shared their own stories of being profiled and discriminated against. The hashtag Standing Up Matters began trending, inspired by Colonel Reynolds' words about not staying silent. Of course, not everyone was supportive. Some people accused Marcus of playing the victim. Others defended Officer Mitchell, saying he was just doing his job. A few people sent Marcus hateful messages online, but the overwhelming majority of responses were positive, and that gave Marcus strength. 3 days after the news story aired, the mall held a press conference. James Brooks, the security director, stood at a podium with the mall's general manager, Helen Rodriguez. They announced that Officer Derek Mitchell had been terminated from his position. They also revealed that an investigation had uncovered 2 previous incidents where Mitchell had been accused of racial profiling, though those complaints had never been properly investigated. We failed, Mr. Johnson, General Manager Rodriguez said into the cameras. We failed to properly train and supervise our security staff. We failed to investigate previous complaints, and we failed to create an environment where all customers feel safe and welcome. That changes today. She announced a series of new policies. All security officers would undergo mandatory bias training every 6 months. Every customer stop would need to be documented with a specific reason and timestamp. A civilian oversight committee would be formed to review security complaints. And the mall would partner with local civil rights organizations to ensure these policies were actually implemented and enforced. Marcus watched the press conference from home with Sarah beside him. When it was over, he felt a mix of emotions: relief that Mitchell was gone, satisfaction that new policies were being put in place, but also sadness that it took his humiliation and a viral video for any of this to happen. His phone rang. It was Colonel Reynolds. Did you see the press conference? She asked. Yes, I just watched it. Marcus replied. How are you feeling? Honestly, I don't know. I'm glad Mitchell is gone. I'm glad they're making changes. But I keep thinking about all the other people this probably happened to, who didn't have someone like you step in, who didn't have video evidence, who didn't have their story go viral. I know, the colonel said gently. This is one victory, but the fight isn't over. Systemic change takes time, but you started something important, Marcus. You stood up. You told your story. You held people accountable. That matters more than you might realize. 2 weeks after that, Marcus received a surprise email. It was from a community organization called Justice Now, a local group that worked on police reform and civil rights issues. They wanted to know if Marcus and Colonel Reynolds would be willing to speak at a town hall meeting about racial profiling and community policing. Marcus called the colonel to ask if she was interested. Absolutely, she said without hesitation. This is exactly the kind of work that needs to be done. Are you comfortable with public speaking? Not really, Marcus admitted. But I think I need to do this. If my story can help other people understand what racial profiling looks like and why it's wrong, then I should tell it. The town hall was held on a Thursday evening at the local community center. Over 200 people showed up. There were families, students, activists, local politicians, and even some police officers. The room was packed. Marcus sat on a panel with Colonel Reynolds, Attorney Jennifer Chen, and Dr. Robert Williams, a sociology professor who studied racial bias. The moderator was Lisa Thompson, the reporter who had first covered Marcus's story. When it was his turn to speak, Marcus took a deep breath and told his story once again. But this time it was easier. He had told it so many times now that he could get through it without his voice shaking. He talked about the fear he felt on the ground. He talked about the humiliation of being treated like a criminal in front of strangers. He talked about having to explain to his 9-year-old daughter why someone had treated her father that way. I did everything right that day, Marcus said to the audience. I was a paying customer. I had my receipt. I was polite and cooperative. But none of that mattered to Officer Mitchell because he had already decided I was guilty the moment he saw me. He didn't see me as a software engineer, a father, a husband, or a human being. He just saw my skin color and made assumptions. The room was completely silent as people listened. Then Colonel Reynolds spoke. What happened to Marcus is not an isolated incident. It's part of a pattern of racial profiling that happens every day in this country, in malls, on streets, in stores, and schools. And it happens because we allow it to happen. We stay silent when we see it. We make excuses for it. We pretend it's not about race when we know it is. She paused and looked around the room. But we can do better. Each one of us has the power to stand up when we see injustice. We have the power to speak out. We have the power to demand change. That's what I did when I saw what was happening to Marcus. And that's what all of you can do too. During the question and answer session, a young black man raised his hand. He looked to be in his early 20s. I've been stopped by police 7 times in the last 2 years. Every time they say I match the description of someone they're looking for. Every time I haven't done anything wrong. What am I supposed to do? How do I protect myself? Marcus and the colonel exchanged a look. They both knew this question too well. Dr. Williams answered first, explaining the legal rights people have during police encounters. Attorney Chen added information about filing complaints and documenting incidents. But it was Kevin Reynolds, the colonel's son, who gave the most powerful response. Kevin had been sitting in the audience, but he stood up to speak. I'm 17 years old. My mom has already given me the talk about how to act around police. Keep my hands visible. Don't make sudden movements. Always be respectful, even if they're not respectful to you. It's exhausting having to think about all of that every time I leave the house. But I do it because I want to come home safe.